but actually it's coming for our children. It's coming for my generation, Gen Z. And the backdrop of this issue is the loneliness epidemic among Gen Z.
What is coming for the younger generations? AI is, specifically AI chatbots. Republican Senator Josh Hawley is proposing that we enact serious guardrails protecting our youth from the dangers of AI chatbots.
You know, you think about the socialization that Gen Z was denied over the COVID pandemic with the draconian lockdowns and school closures, denied not just in-person learning, but actual connectivity with peers. And I think we underestimate just how important that is to someone's mental health. I think about how Rains was 16 years old. I'm 27 years old, but I didn't get I didn't get a graduation during COVID, but I also didn't get, several months of senior year. But think about even younger children who didn't get to interact with their peers. And I think that's really what's driving young people to go seek counsel with technology that are not capable of nuance. They're not capable of debate and disagreement. They're just engineered, designed to mimic the user's preferences. So there have to be guardrails. So kudos to Senator Josh Hawley.
Okay, so what is with this bill? It's actually a bipartisan bill brought forth by Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. It's also got several co-sponsors, Senators Katie Britt, Republican from Alabama, Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, and Chris Murphy, the other Democratic senator from Connecticut.
And when it comes to the AI chatbots, I've got major concerns about using them. I have to be frank in any way in education, and I'll tell you why. Yesterday, I sat in a committee hearing, I chaired one, and parents, because it was 2 days ago, parents sat right where you're sitting now, and I heard the story of parent after parent whose teenage children had used chatbots. They'd started by using them for homework. Can you help me with this science question? Can you point me in the right direction? Innocent, innocuous. And then pretty soon, the chatbots were doing things like suggesting, have you ever considered cutting yourself? Have you ever explored self-harm? Narrating to them graphic sexual scenes that I won't go into here. And then telling them how to kill themselves. And multiple children have done it.
So AI chatbots pose a serious threat to our kids, Hawley said in a statement to NBC News. More than 70% of American children are now using these AI products, he continued. Chatbots develop relationships with kids using fake empathy and are encouraging suicide. We in Congress have a moral duty to enact bright-line rules to prevent further harm from this new technology. This legislation comes after a congressional hearing last month, which heard calls from concerned parents over the proliferation of AI chatbots and the lack of regulation surrounding them. It's called the GUARD Act, or the Guidelines for User Age Verification and Responsible Dialogue Act. So what's in the bill more specifically? A few things. For one, it would require AI companies to implement an age verification process and ban those companies from providing AI companions to minors. It would also mandate that AI companions disclose their non-human status and lack of professional credentials for all users at regular intervals. And the bill would create criminal penalties for AI companies that design, develop, or make available AI companions that solicit or induce sexually explicit conduct from minors or encourage suicide, according to the summary of the legislation. And the reason why this legislation needs to happen is because, as we should all know by now, the tech companies only care about their money. They don't care about how damaging their technology can be or has been to people as long as they are able to capitalize off of it. Facebook even admitted to targeting young teenage girls with self-esteem issues to sell them beauty products. So here is what Senator Blumenthal had to say about the inability and unwillingness of tech companies to regulate themselves.
Their children were victims of big tech and its experiment to decide how much more money they could make. Big tech is using our children as guinea pigs in a high-tech, high-stakes experiment to make their industry more profitable. If big tech were not opposing it with armies of lawyers and lobbyists, millions and millions of dollars, and I am most angry about the hypocrisy because they've come before our committees, Judiciary and Commerce, and they've said, trust us, trust us. We want to do the right thing. We're going to take care of it. The time for trust us is over. It is done. I have had it, and I think every member of the United States Senate and Congress should feel the same way. This bill establishes tough criminal penalties for these companionship bots, character AI that encourage the emotional bonds that then prey on children by encouraging violence, self-harm, suicide, offering sexually explicit material. There ought to be criminal penalties, federal criminal prosecutions. That's the only thing that big tech will understand at this point.
So while the intention of this act feels admirable, there have been criticisms of legislation surrounding age verification, the biggest criticism probably being that it actually violates user privacy, not just of minors, but for everyone, in the name of protecting the children. As in order to determine whether or not someone is a minor, it requires a lot of data collection, whether that's of personal data and documents or even biometric data. So you all might know that I interact with technology and social platforms only as much as I need to and not much more, which I get is ironic considering I work on YouTube. I posted something on my Instagram grid this week, but I think that was my first post in, since last year. I'll lurk because it does provide an aggregate of what's going on around the world, and doing the work that I do, it does help me to stay informed, not just with what's going on politically, but also culturally. However, the minute I feel myself just starting to scroll for the sake of scrolling, I will bounce out of there. So all of that to say, I personally am already very skeptical of technology, specifically of the way it has advanced so rapidly within my own lifetime, but especially in the last 20 years or so. I'm skeptical of the fact that we roll these technologies out on a global population without understanding the long-term effects of constant usage of this technology and what that can mean for our people, especially for our elderly and for our youth. I don't love the environmental and humanitarian impacts of producing and discarding these devices at such rapid rates. I don't love that we've become so dependent on these technologies that even the mention of wanting to separate oneself or one's family from that addiction, and it is an addiction, is met with derision and criticism. For example, to live without a smartphone in today's modern era, where everything in society has reshaped itself around the idea that everyone just has one of these devices, is truly to live an alternative lifestyle. By the way, the cost of these devices is exorbitant. It's not a cost that people should be expected to pay for the opportunity to participate in society. And the fact that the devices are provided by profit-driven companies means that for the public, this will always be a cost that they will essentially have to pay when they don't have much choice in the matter. There is no food stamps equivalent for iPhones, although in light of recent events, that is a bad example. Anyway, don't even get me started on cars, but with AI, I am especially skeptical because while I know that it's not going anywhere, I do not trust the way it is being absolutely forced on everyone. Everything now has an AI component to it, and I don't recall anyone asking for it. The reality is that these handful of companies have invested so heavily and bet so hard on AI that they simply cannot allow it to fail. And with that, our entire economy is directly tied to the implementation and adoption of that technology that, again, most people never asked for. Another side of it is that as far as many of us understand, while it could potentially have plenty of use cases in, say the medical field, just an example, the way that it's likely going to be used is in the surveillance of the general population and advertising. And let me tell you, I have absolutely had it with being advertised to constantly. It's to the point where when I'm driving, billboards upset me. I have always felt that billboards were ugly and trashy and distracting, but the more I think about them now, the more crazy it feels that they're just so widely accepted and used across this country. At least in Houston, like half of them are for the most insufferable lawyers, and they just plaster their faces all over our city. It's the worst. And with the proliferation of AI and the fact that we are now raising our children on iPads and educating them with ChatGPT, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not concerned about the future of this country. Kids in schools are now so much further behind in their education than where we were when I was a kid in the 90s and early 2000s. And let's be clear, there are plenty of reasons as to why that is. It's not just AI, it's not just iPads, but those technologies certainly are not helping. Literacy rates are way down, not just the reading of the words, which they are struggling with, but also with comprehension and application. Problem solving is down or non-existent. Their attention spans are gone. They're using ChatGPT to write college essays, which has been shown to minimize brain activity and deplete retention rates. On top of all of that, there are the dangerous psychological impacts that we have already seen surrounding people's interpersonal relationships with these AI chatbots. Again, I know that this technology is here to stay. I know that I personally am less accepting of it than many people are. So that is like, I'll say it a million times, it's a personal thing. I know that many of you will probably feel different, but I think it is incredibly irresponsible that something this powerful has been allowed to thrive within a nation and on the planet without certain safeguards and regulations having been put in place from the outset. I suppose better late than never, but whether it's the government or these tech companies regulating it, something needs to be done. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.